Thank you, thank you. Oh man, thank you. I love you guys too. Okay, bring it. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Bring it down, bring it down. Yeah, Hired Gun, episode 3. 3. Didn't work because I got my headphone on. My bad. But we made it, episode 3. This is cool. Appreciate all the love I've been getting. I've been getting a lot of shares and comments and all that stuff. Got a shout out on the Cali Death podcast, which is my favorite show to watch. If you are unfamiliar, go to YouTube. I think all platforms, but YouTube, Cali Death podcast. If you are into the death metal scene from late 90s to the 2000s, it's the best show in the world. They got guests like Derek Roddy, all the guys from Severed Savior. It's pretty much ran by the members of Odious Mortem and the drummer for Too Violently Vomit. This is really fucking cool. You gotta check it out. I watch it every week. Comes out on Thursdays. They have like 80 episodes. Yeah, if you got time to kill, that's the way to do it. So, Cali Death Podcast. Appreciate you guys showing some love. That was cool. This is a really cool episode. I get to brag and talk about my good friend Paul Mcguire from Cerebral, how I got to meet him and some of the stuff that we did early on in our friendship. I'm about to shuffle through this real quick. So I met Paul in the United Kingdom. So this is 2007. I'm 21 years old. I'm playing drums for Prophecy from Dallas, Texas. And we're in the UK. The first show was Southend-on-Sea, if I'm not mistaken. Southend, I guess is what you refer to it. It kind of had a weird name. But yeah, I meet Paul, and he's just such a cool guy. And he's from Scotland, if you didn't know. And at the time, I'm pretty sure he was the only, Cerebral was the only Scottish death metal band. So they had done one kind of do-it-yourself tour, and they went to New York and stuff, like a year prior to that. So he was telling me about that, and he's talking about how he wants to go back. So through that, we kind of I'm like, hey man, I throw shows and shit, I'll fucking help you out. So yeah, hang out all night. I think we crashed at the same place. And then we played Manchester at a place called Satan's Hollow, which is fucking cool. It's a circular venue. I remember hearing a story about Skinless playing there, and they got a circle pit going around the whole stage. They have scary movie stuff all over the walls. It was such a cool place. But I remember, I want to say that was the second show, and Phil, the bass player, lost his wallet, and they came to me thinking maybe that I did it. And they're like, no, and I helped them relook all over the place. We ended up finding it. I mean, they weren't really, they just kind of asked me hey, have you seen a wallet? And I'd help them. So anyway, it's just kind of a bonding experience. We find his wallet, we hang out that night. It just kind of goes and goes. So anyway, there's that. We fast forward to a few months, and he's trying to do that tour, and I'm like, now I'm kind of biting my lip about it because I think I was just going through some stuff or something. It just wasn't the details of getting a van and booking the whole run and kind of being a tour manager. I just was like, crap, maybe I shouldn't have said I could do that. But Paul fucking goes for it. He keeps going and going and going. He doesn't give up. If he says he's going to do something, he does it. And he ends up getting a biodiesel engine van. It's like a casino shuttle bus. I can't remember the guy's name who was the driver, but I want to say he's from Minnesota. Somehow he meets Paul through the internet. And so he finds a driver, and they have this biodiesel engine is basically an engine that runs off old vegetable oil. It cranks, you can fill it up from old oil at a restaurant and go until it burns out. So we didn't spend anything on gas the whole time. So he finds this guy, so he works that out. I'm like, shit, okay. I don't know, he flies to America, he meets up with this guy, he gets this shuttle bus. Next thing you know, there's those shows, and Cancer Horror was doing pretty well. We were making some noise at the time. And we had a show in, it was Denton, which is basically Dallas, Texas, with with Devourment, Condemned, Inherit Disease, Cancer Horror, which was a big deal for us. And I don't remember what was going on with my members at the time, but I think we weren't able to play it, and so Cerebral Boar's in town, and I'm like, yo, Eric, Cerebral board needs to take our spot. And he's like, nah, I don't know, man. I'm like, trust me, dude. These guys are from Scotland. They're super cool. Like, you got to fucking do it. And they put him on. This was the first time that Eric met Paul and all those guys, which I'm pretty sure they developed a friendship too. So anyone who knows these guys, ever sees them, fucking loves them. They're such an awesome band. And so, like, we played that show, or I'm sorry, they played that show. And Eric has a crazy after party, which he's known for. So, like, everyone from fucking the scenes, it's like an Animal House party or something. It's just slammed with people from everywhere. And there's a picture of me and Paul holding a fucking BB gun to Chris Andrews, the captain from the bass player for Devourment. His head, he's just passed out drunk. We're just like, got a fucking gun. I don't remember too much about the party besides we all got wasted. But I guess somewhere throughout that day, there was a friend of mine, Harley. It's kind of like a little sister. She's just at all the shows and stuff. And caught wind that we were going to Central Illinois. After that, asked if she could tag along. I mentioned it to drunk Paul. He's like, sure. And all right, it's just like a quick little moment throughout that night. We go back to Shreveport, Louisiana the next day, kind of regroup at my house, and we're getting close to leaving, and Harley hits me up like, hey, I'm on my way, I'm almost there. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even fucking think about this. So like, we're getting ready to leave, and now I gotta go to Paul and be like, you remember when you were drunk and I mentioned that girl coming with us? Is that still cool? And he's like, oh man, no, I thought you meant she was going to ride with us from Dallas to here, not here to the fest. And I'm like, oh, well, she's like almost here now. And so I was like, shit, it's kind of a weird thing. So he's like, okay, it's whatever. And Harley's a nut. She's awesome. We got tons of memories. She's a friend, but especially this time, she was wild. And she calls me and she's like, hey, I'm at the McDonald's, and I'm like, cool, that's right across the street from my house. So, and it's like a four-way kind of traffic jam intersection thing. There's four-way here and like 4 lanes of just like shitloads of traffic. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the house across the street. And she's pretty young, I think, at this time, like 18 or something. Maybe even younger, I don't know. But instead of like taking a left and fucking like looping around, or taking a right and looping around, she just guns it, shoots across all the traffic. Everyone's slamming on their brakes and swerving out of the way. And I mean, it is like 8 scenarios of like almost wrecked, almost wrecked, almost. Everyone's like, what the fuck? Into my driveway. I'm like, oh my motherfucking God. Because now I'm thinking about, what if she would have gotten a fucking car accident? We're leaving. I can't fucking stay with her. Like, that was this close to becoming such a horrible fucking situation. And holy shit. So yeah, I remember that happening. I'm like, dude, this is going to be a fucking nutty adventure. God damn. So I introduced her to Paul. You know, everybody thinks she's cool. And so we head off to Urbana, Illinois, which is Chicago-ish, I think. I don't know how long it is from Shreveport, but it's a good fucking way. It's a solid day, I feel like. It was a good trip. I don't know. But a few things happened along the way. And what are we doing on time to see? Hell yeah. So a few quick little things. I remember we tried to sleep one night. And mosquitoes. It was just like hundreds of mosquitoes. We couldn't fuck. It was like the worst situation of my life, of just being like covered in goddamn mosquitoes. And then I remember, I think it was McDibbit, the drummer, took a shit on a fucking tractor at a fucking like construction site, like right on the seat, big fucking log. I remember that being pretty hilarious. And then like he ended up getting some like rash on his face. It was like fucking flesh-eating bacteria or something. It got worse and worse and worse, and it got to the point where we had to stop, find some random doctor office and go, and he got some cream and ended up working. Poor fucking guy though, because I remember we're on a deadline, we're trying to fucking go, and he's just like, we gotta go to the doctor. And I'm kind of being like, oh man, you know, it'll be okay. And I remember him just looking at me and being, look at my fucking face. It was bad. I'm like, man, you're fucking right. God damn. Poor fucking guy. Gets some cream. I remember he puts it on. And he's like, "Fuck it burns so fucking bad and shit." And like, ah. But anyway, so yeah, we get to CIM, and they fucking killed. They're a big hit. I mean, I met Tony Cole, which is my favorite artist. I had been talking to him for years. Uh, like, I miss those fucking fests, dude. Matt Bishop, you fucking rule. Central Illinois, man. Good fucking times. So anyway, that was my first one. It's just like rock stars everywhere. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. It's a 3-day fest. So, I mean, it's just normal fest activity, whatever you would think. Great bands. But I'm kind of on a time crunch here. So I remember it's the very end, and I see Adam Jarvis, drummer for Misery Index. They had played in Shreveport, stayed at my bass player's house, and we had a good old time. But that was like years ago. He had just joined the band, and now it's been like 4 or 5 years later, I think, something like that. And I walk by him. I'm like, Adam Jarvis. He looks back. I'm kind of like, not expecting him to remember me, but I go, "Hey man, you played in Shreveport, wherever." And he's like, "Shreveport, yeah, Cancer Whore." I'm like, "Oh, dude, fuck yeah!" And I remember The Negation from Decapitated had just come out. We were like playing along to that. He remembered that, so I thought that was super cool. So he knows Paul, the guys somehow or another, and I remember Paul and the driver had gotten a fight or some shit, and this driver storms off. We don't know where he's at. So we're all hanging around the bus. The bus is locked. All of our shit's in there. And one by one, people are fucking leaving the fest. And it's right in the middle of town. And there's just beer cans everywhere, and slowly people are dropping. And I remember, like, sitting there just so drunk, so tired, so miserable. The sun's beating on me. It's like early in the morning. Nobody's around. I mean, everyone's crashed out asleep, but like the dude ain't around, and I'm so worried that a cop is gonna roll up and arrest us all. I mean, I'm the only one even semi-conscious, and I was like 1% conscious, dude. I was pushing so hard to try to be the savior of that event or whatever. So eventually, the dude comes back, and Harley's crashing. And I don't know what I said. I was just making her get up. I'm like, "Hey, you need to get up so we can fold the bed." And she storms off. she throws a little fit, storms off. And I'm dead broke. She has like $100 and something bucks. She's paying for our bus tickets back. Like, that's our way back. But now she's storming off, and like, someone had mentioned the Greyhound was like kind of not too far up the way, which was wrong. So she storms off. I got to follow her. She's on my way home. We can't find the Greyhound. We're all over the goddamn place. Somehow or another, we find it. We've been walking for fucking over an hour, it seems like. Find the Greyhound. It's like we just Greyhounding back home. I remember we were both broke by the time we got home, so we paid the taxi like $5, and they drove us like halfway back to my house, and then we walked the rest of the way and just barely fucking made it back home, dude. And that's the gist of that story, man. I've known Paul for a long, long time. He has a page, Obscenery Films. He makes music videos, does a bunch of live band shit. Very fucking talented. He's got a show he did with Jamie Josta and Dino, like hanging out with all these goddamn rock stars all the time. Paul, I'm fucking proud of you, dude. From then being motherfucker, doing it yourself, going to New York, don't know a goddamn soul, to now he's tour managing like Decrepit Birth and Dying Fetus. Maybe not currently, but he was. That motherfucker had his fucking toes dipped in the biz, like, legitimately, and I'm really proud of you, dude. You're a fucking bad motherfucker. So hells to Paul Mcguire. All right, amigos. So before all the stuff with Paul and that trip up to Central Illinois, I wrestled a bear once who's from Shreveport. Was in a situation where their drummer, I don't know, going to school, something, couldn't play. And he had only recently joined the band. So they were willing to do a drum machine tour. They had already done a drum machine tour. They asked my brother, who isn't necessarily good at double bass or like blasting and stuff, but he's an incredible drummer. John Hoffman, he actually has a drumming channel. Been teaching for years, been playing gigs since he was like 4 years old. Amazing drummer. But I'm definitely like the metal guy, and he's pretty much everything else. So he, and like I knew Stephen Bradley for sure. We had played shows together. he just thought I was too death metal to play IWRESTLEDABEARONCE. He didn't think I would be down. So my brother tells him to check me out, or I mean, just kind of says I'm the guy. And they ended up coming to like a blues gig I had with my dad, where I was a little more versatile, I guess. It wasn't just blast beats and stuff. So that's when I met the band. It was real brief, right before, I think it was before, anyway, before I did all that. So like I knew that I had to learn the stuff. Like that's the point of my story is, while I was doing all the fest stuff, I knew that was coming, and I was supposed to be going over the material on the bus ride back. But it was so dramatic, I just didn't have time. So I get back, I got 4 days before I leave with them, fairly familiar with the stuff. And they were really popping off at the time. The Tastes Like Kevin Bacon music video was literally #1 on YouTube for months, I feel like. At least a solid month, if not for months. If you went to YouTube, that was the #1 video you saw. So it was a big deal. And but I wasn't really too familiar with the stuff because of the clean singing, and you know, I just was kind of a hater on it at first. So we grinded out 4 days. On the first day, my breaker blows and Steven's guitar fuse blows, or whatever. It's the Madison guitar. They went under, I guess, or something, but they were really badass. But anyway, his head goes out, so it was kind of a bad juju from the start. I didn't know anything hardly. Daniel Andrews, the keyboard player, he was very helpful. He knew like all the ins and outs of the material, and he would kind of cue me on everything. But yeah, we grind it out. I make it happen, and it was like a month or a month and a half or so, somewhere, that I hit the road. 4 days after that, so it was definitely kind of a situation. And all in all, I mean, honestly, it went well. All the touring was great at the time. It was probably the biggest shows I had ever played. I guess the main issue was the demographic for I Wrestled a Bear Once was like 12-year-old girls. It was a real silly, you know, kind of band. And we were on tour with Legia, which is a band from Boston. They're like brocore, hate moshing, kind of. They got like angsty fucking 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old hate moshing, you know, and it was just like every single show, it was like little kids getting smashed and shit. So it was very odd, kind of. It was always like 800 people or so. I mean, we had some really good times for sure. We went coast to coast, Florida, New York, California. Tons of shows. We had very few days off. But I remember that was the big thing, is like every show I'd be seeing these hardcore dudes swinging around. And I'm like, I swear to God, these motherfuckers hit me, I'm gonna fucking fuck them up. And I'd see like hardcore fights all the time. A bunch of windmills to the shoulders and top of the head. And I'm like, these motherfuckers fight just the way they piss. Like, I would, in my head, I feel like I could beat the shit out of like 10 of these motherfuckers at once. So every day I'm kind of like amped up, kind of like, dude, fucking test me. Anyway, it ended up being cool. Most of the time, those guys that I was envisioning fighting, I'd end up fucking chatting it up with later, and they end up being cool. But, you know, for the most part, it was just silly stuff for a good month and a half, however long it was. It was very positive. We were all getting along well. I mean, it seemed like everything was good. So a lot of members had quit, or stuff had happened. So basically, I was new, the bass player Dave was brand new, and the guitarist Mim, who is Krista, the singer's sister, she was new. She was playing guitar. So half the band is new. We all smoke weed. The other one, Krista, Steven, Daniel, they don't. So it was kind of like a little divided in that way. We're new, we smoke, they don't. They're the boss. So we'd always kind of like arrive at the venue and peel off and just try to find people to smoke, because we weren't allowed to carry it at all. So I got real close with Mim and Dave, and unfortunately I lost track. I don't know if they have Facebook or not. I'll try to search them so I can tag them in this stuff, but man, such good times with those guys. So we're getting along great. They want me to join. I never really did have that talk though with Steven and Krista, but I just felt like everything was positive. So I was assuming I was like in the band. I remember they had like Warped Tour coming up and like a European tour, and they were talking to me like they wanted me to do it, and I was totally down and excited about it. So Cancer Horror, I kind of put that down. Like while I'm on the road, I'm like, hey, I'm busy, guys. Psychiatric Regurgitation from Dallas, I had worked with them. They got a drummer. Maybe it was Prophecy that I was like, fuck y'all, but I think I had already said fuck you to Prophecy. I thought there was 3 projects, but I don't know. I basically cleared my schedule and was like down. So yeah, it was just like some funny memories I wanted to mention. And this is so epic. I must have had like a little money starting off, because I remember I'd buy a little at truck stops. I'd get like a little dart gun or just little silly little fucking poppers to fuck with people, or cap guns and shit. But I remember one time I bought cheap ass little plastic dart gun, and there was a McDonald's connected to the truck stop, and so I get it. I'm walking in the McDonald's, and Stephen Bradley gets his order. He's walking, both hands on the tray, and dude, I don't know, the demons were with me or something, but I pointed the gun, I kind of angled it. I could kind of see like the arc of across the room. I'm just like kind of like, and the wind's there and about this distance. I could just fucking see it. I swear to God, I saw it. Pop, shoot the fucking dart, hits his glasses on the this part, and literally, boom, like knocks his glasses off his face. He gets all mad and shit. I'm like, dude, you can't be mad. That was fucking perfect. I'm sorry. I didn't mean knock the glasses off, but holy shit, right? And that's not a lie. Like 20 feet with a cheap ass dollar gun, whoop, glasses. You know, man, that was, hey, it is what it is. That was tight. So yeah, like I said, I hadn't done too much. This was definitely the biggest band I had worked with at the time, and the shows were definitely the biggest, and we're going every state. So it was moving, you know, I was moving up, so to speak, in the hired gun touring racket. Another memory, we were in New York, I remember, and we couldn't find any pot. We hadn't smoked in days, and I remember catching a whiff. Like the wind blows, and I'm like, I smelled some guys, like a Mim and Dave there. I'm like, so I'm walking around the building. We're walking around the building. I'm looking at all the fans. A lot of them are fucking kids. I'm like, is that you? Gauging their reaction. It was like, huh? What? I don't know. So finally, I see that the band is on the side of the building, and they're in a group. I'm like, okay, I figured this out. So I didn't even have a key to the van, but I just walked to our van and start jiggling on the handle, acting like I'm doing something, like kind of like, oh, hey guys, can I join? I'm the drummer for Wabo, whatever, and yeah, join. I'm like, cool. Hey, can my guys come too? Mim and yeah, cool, they come. This was the band called We Are the Romans. I'm pretty sure is what they were called. And Michael, the drummer, was the drummer for Through the Eyes of the Dead. And I found out later, like, we're friends now, that was him. And I'm like, oh, dude, do you remember this fucking day? And he did. But come to find out, he was just breaking up some weed. And I smelled that shit. 2 sides of the building, like the wind blew his little blunt real fucking far, and I caught the whiff, and it was like a cartoon where I fucking just followed the goddamn smell. So that was, I don't know, maybe you just had to be there, but that shit was funny as fuck. I remember Dennis from Court of the Villain. I met him in Florida. We hit it off, and I was basically explaining the whole brocore, hate moshing, because it was kind of new. We're talking about 2008. I hadn't seen that shit before. And I'm explaining the whole, like, yeah, we got like little fucking preteens. They're getting fucking kicked in the head and shit. And as I'm telling the story, I'm like, I swear to God, if they fucking crack me, I'm gonna be like, motherfucker, bam! Like I threw a fucking head kick and my shoe flies over the building, hits a girl in the head. A preteen. Just like the same shit I'm fucking talking about. These fucking guys, they're fucking mule kicking little girls. I swear if they hit me, I'm gonna fucking, bat! My shoe flies, hits a girl in the head. So me and Dennis end up becoming great friends. Cancer Horror and Court of the Villain tour, I believe that was my next tour after this one. So we hit it off and ended up touring together after that. So there's just cool stuff along the way. How are we doing on time? So I remember we were in North Carolina So I know we had started the new tour in Cali, and we were in North Carolina because I know that was the last show. And it was a big old party. I didn't sleep a wink, and it had been like a month and a half or whatever. And finally, I had a few dollars in my pocket, and the dude was gonna sell me a blunt. I'm like, man, I'm gonna fucking keep this blunt. Tired of looking for pot. So I have the blunt. I barely sleep. I'm in the van for like an hour, and we're going to get the oil changed. And Daniel's like, hey, band meeting. I'm like, huh, first band meeting. And he's explaining, they keep going, well, Steven's talking. He's explaining about, yeah, the label didn't know that we changed drummers. They didn't know, they didn't like your performance or some shit. They're going to release our stuff at a bottom level if we don't get the original drummer because he's under contract. It's all like a bunch of weird stuff. And I start putting together, like, all of this is, he just kind of keeps talking. He's real serious at me, kind of. And I'm like, oh my God, they know I have pot. Fuck. I knew I shouldn't have did that. Oh, man. And he keeps talking, and I'm like, man, he knows. And it's like, why is he not mentioning it? And then I start realizing, like, wait. And I go, wait, are you kicking me out? Yeah, man, you hate me, right? And I'm like, I'm like thinking, oh, they know how we, they're kicking me out of the band? What the fuck? And there was some truth to that. I was real confused, and I was real bitter for years. So yeah, we cut the tour. We drive to Shreveport. They drop me off. They go to California. They record their first CD without even having written really the first song. He just had bits and parts, bits and pieces. So it was a real mindfuck because I was like on board. Everything seemed so good. And then it was like all of a sudden, clearly, he had been juggling this decision for like a minute. And we did have a good relationship, and I was doing well. I think everything was great, and that's why he didn't know how to bring it up until it was too late. And I think maybe the drummer, this is the conclusion I've come to since, he was going to come back, but I was kind of under the impression like, well, I'm doing so well, they're going to keep me. And maybe he was too. And maybe that really was a real conversation as far as the whole contract thing. And he just had to make the call like, fuck it. He's down still. You know, Eddie, go, whatever. But it was real fucked up. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. And yeah, it was like just like a real silent fucking like maybe it was just a fucking full day, 24 hours or some shit back home. But that was that, man. It started in 4 days, went a month and a half, and ended overnight. And it was like a, you know, I think back, and I'm not tripping. It was cool. They were on Century Media. I got to go to the Century Media office, meet all those guys. I got to tour everywhere. I mean, I'm not tripping. And then I joined Vital, which is on Century Media, and that's more my style anyway. So it really ended up working out. They had great success from that point. You know, it's cool. And I get to say that I jam with them, and it is what it is. But it didn't end, or ended pretty quick too. So that's it, man. That's going to wrap up episode 3. I hope you dig it. The next ones are going to start getting a little more dark. Definitely way more exciting. So if you stick with me, I think you'll be entertained. I appreciate you guys. Just like always, like, comment, share, subscribe.